For having me, Dr. Gigi.
You're welcome. It's such an honor to have you here today. Now, can you start off by telling us a little bit more about you and where are you from, Dr. Fisher?
A little bit more about me and where I'm from. I'll start off there. I was born in rural Illinois. I'll put it like that. But home is Minneapolis to me. But I've lived in a lot of different places in the U.S. Texas, Florida, a bunch of different places, Maryland, a lot. So I moved around a lot, but it was because of the work that I do. Like, I'm in leadership and luxury. So because of that, I have chosen to move to a few different places. I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm an aunt, I'm a bonus grandma, all the things. So, I am really involved in my family and they keep me grounded, involved in my faith. It keeps me grounded every day. So, and a little bit more about me. Again, I work in leadership and luxury, but I grew up in a pretty precarious situation, I guess, needless to say, very humble means. But even in all of that, my mom always kept us grounded in our faith. And she always emphasized the importance of reading and writing and literature. She wanted to be an English lit major and major in English when she was younger. She didn't go to college. She started her family. But we come from humble means, and she always kept us grounded in literature and beauty and things like that. So those are some of the things that I value. And that's part of the reason I went on to get my doctorate, because I thought having a doctorate would help you. I always wanted to be a better writer. It was one of my goals when I was a kid. I thought that I needed a doctorate to be able to do that. Come to find out, as you know, Dr. Gigi, the writing is an art. So you're very prolific yourself. So writing is an art. You don't go to school to get a degree and you become, voila, a better writer. It's definitely an art and a science behind it. And when you have a certain level of when you're really prolific, it really just comes down to the art at that point. You're just writing and there's a lot of rejection, a lot of pain involved. I call it a labor of love. But just like you, Dr. Gigi, I'm a writer too. So those are just a few things about myself. I'm a veteran Capitol Hill strategist. I started my career working for members of Congress on the Hill doing PR and in leadership studies and private advisors. So I could go into a lot of different things, but that's pretty much like me in a nutshell, if I had to say it in that way.
I love it. We have common ground there in that I'm family oriented as well. And my faith means the world to me also. Now, Dr. Fisher, tell us a little bit more about the major challenges that you faced in your life.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of the work you do and Walk With Me and your literature and things like that is about resilience and overcoming and emotional grit. And that's not to be understated. Like, it teaches us a lot about life. So as I said, when I was young, I overcame we come from humble means. My ancestors, my grandparents, they moved to the Midwest with the Great Migration, and they worked hard, and I don't think even any of my parents finished high school, but they always knew the value of a good education and instilled that into, especially my mom, because my mom's side of the family is from rural Illinois, and then my dad's side of the family, they are from the Delta. My dad was the first to move out of the Delta. His mom and him they moved out. So they always knew the value of a good education. So one of the challenges is, like a lot of your listeners, they're trailblazers. They are risk takers. They know the importance of being the first one. And that's one thing in leadership, because I'm a leadership professor as well as a luxury business advisor. And in that work, it really is about like being a trailblazer, going first, going often, as one of my mentors says. And it really is about that emotional aspect of it. So I was the first one in my family, first generation college graduate. We have several now in my family. first generation college graduate. I didn't think college back then. I didn't think college costed. I thought to just sign up and then you just go, because no one I didn't know. And in my high school, I went to high school in Tampa. As we know, for your listeners who are in the U.S., a typical what they call urban high school in the middle of the city. And we didn't talk about college all that much from my school, but my mom, like I said, she always talked to us about going to college and the importance of an education. So being the first one in my family to go to college, that was a big deal. And so those are just some of the challenges. And then when I graduated from college, I worked hard, and I thought the harder that I worked, the more successful I would become. But really, when you get a certain level of success, it really is about like the art of the work. But I was struggling from burnout and overwhelm, and I was like, something's got to change. And so that's when I leaned into my faith, and I was like, I just started meditating and praying on it. And I just had a reckoning. So I had the reckoning. And then that's when I turned to, I'm meant to reach more people. So the Spirit led me to say, you got to get out there more. You got to reach more people, especially women and women who want to do big things. Women in leadership is really part of my expertise, and being a leader in that space. So that's some of the big challenges. I've had several mini challenges, but I think the biggest one was being a risk taker when I was younger and being the first generation college grad. I mean, like I said, I went to high school in Tampa, Florida, and I moved all the way across the country by myself on a train to Minneapolis to finish my degrees. And that's where I call home, because it really shaped, living in Minnesota really shaped who I am right now. I've got really deeper in my faith and my walk with spirituality and things like that. I've connected with a lot of people from different religions, different faith-based traditions and things like that. So that really shaped who I am today. That was my biggest one. It's been a bunch of other ones out there. The big one now is, continuing to grow my business. I've experienced a lot of growing pains in my work in the last year or so. I have to say a good 2 years at least. And because of these growing pains, it really has taught me a lot about...
It made you stronger, correct?
It does. It teaches you a lot about who you really are. So, and it makes you step up and step into that leadership role. So, definitely, for sure, just the emotional resilience around leadership. And I think we need more people in doing leadership things. And it's not about telling people what to do, but it's about like going first, being a model, and going often and stepping out and sharing those messages with people and talking about what you learned from it and the wisdom that comes from leadership, especially women in leadership. So
I love it. Speaking of leadership, what does leadership mean to you, Dr. Fisher?
Yeah, at first, when I was younger, before I went into leadership studies, I thought leadership was like a role that you were designated, like someone told you, oh, you are a leader. And oftentimes that comes from an academia or what we call organizational development. Like it really is beyond organizations, is who you are. In some aspects of, well, let me say it differently. In some traditions of academia, leadership is defined by the stance you take. In the research, they talk about like a leadership stance. You don't have to have a certain job role to be a leader. You can be a leader from whatever job role you're in. It really is about like a good listener, a good communicator, going first, being a risk taker, showing emotional like resilience and emotional capacity, and creativity is a big aspect of leadership. And it goes beyond work too, because some of your leaders might be leaders in their family. They might be leaders in their home, or in their community. It goes beyond just what you're doing or the job role you have at an organization, but how you're helping and inspiring other people to be the best version of themselves. Because as a leader, if you're going first, you're working on being a better version of yourself. I don't buy into the notion of the best version. I think as leaders, we are showing up as the best version of ourselves at that time, and to honor that, but to be a better version of ourselves. The next version, the pivot is what I like to call it. So
I love it. I love your energy as well. Now let's circle back to burnout. You mentioned experiencing burnout. What message do you have for an individual who may be experiencing burnout today?
Yeah, burnout really starts with how we make sense of things that's going on. I approach leadership and luxury from a capacity perspective, and how we story and how we narrate and how we make sense of things. In academia or in the science, some people call it metacognition and psychological theories and things like that. I approach burnout from that perspective. But when you look burnout up online, it's basically the same thing, because the World Health Organization says is a phenomenon, is a very important phenomenon, and it is somebody's for their cynicism around their work, their disconnect, their emotional disconnect, or negativity around their work. So when the World Health Organization, they define it that way, and that's how I usually start off when I use that phrase. And then it really is about reframing, and this is what I do with leaders and people who are pivoting into the luxury market. It really is about how you reframe the work that you're doing. Are you approaching your work from the best version of yourself that you can? Like, where are you not necessarily getting the results that you want? So it's really sometimes about, okay, how can you tweak this or how can you tweak that to address the burnout? And it is really about, sometimes it's about expanding our creativity too. So burnout might show up in different ways. It might show up, according to the World Health Organization, in the ways that I mentioned a few minutes ago. For me, it showed up as, I don't know it showed up like a physiological response for me. So I was shivering. I had kind of involuntary movements and things like that when I was experiencing work kind of things. I was overthinking. I was stressing out. I had running thoughts. I had negative thoughts. And some of these symptoms show up in the World Health, how World Health, WHO writes about it too. And then I realized I needed to do something different. I really needed to reframe and refocus on how can I lean into my faith right now to rethink how I'm doing this work. And that's when I started to expand my capacity and my creativity, coming up with new ideas to do the same thing and allowing myself breaks. So it's not really about doing more, because oftentimes, not all women, but oftentimes women who work outside of the home in the professions feel like they have to do more. But it's about doing things more efficiently and with more creativity that allows you to really express yourself. I really wasn't feeling like I was expressing myself in my work. I felt like I was just being drug around. So that's when I had to step into my leadership and say, okay, well, what can I do differently here? So my experience with burnout was that. And then when I started to think differently about my work and started to be more creative and expansive and grow my capacity, that's when I realized, burnout is something I never have to experience again. And I haven't since then. Yeah, and it's funny, you're a doctor too. So you had a capstone project or a dissertation or whatever your doctorate project was. And I don't know if you have experiences or not, but it came full circle for me, because the tools I wrote about, or the methods I wrote about in my dissertation, were the methods I had never applied to myself. So when I started using my own methods that, we pioneer as doctors, it's like, okay, this stuff really works. So
I love it. Very powerful message, Dr. Fisher. Now, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
I would say walking with purpose is first getting back. One of my colleagues, she calls it faith and leadership. I think it's both. Like, I get inspired by her because she studies the role of faith for leaders and how they use their faith and their leadership to inspire people to do things that they couldn't, and themselves, so to do things that they couldn't even, they blow their own minds, essentially. So really, like, to walk in faith is to really tap back into, like, okay, how am I using my faith here? What are my spiritual tools that I use? What is my spiritual background? Where can I lean into that to express myself more and to pivot and create the next version of myself? So I would say just continuing to walk in that faith and leadership and leading people, leading yourself so that you can lead others better.
I love it. Do you have any last words for the audience, Dr. Fisher?
I think we covered everything. I think that's the main thing. And I would say some of the last words, if I could just reiterate, is that it really becomes, once you have the essentials or the essence of what it is you're doing, it really becomes an art after that. So really just allowing, I'm still doing this work today, allowing ourselves to really express ourselves through the art of the work. So, and just really leaning into that and having the faith and trust that it'll all work out at the end of the day. So that probably will be some of my final words for now. So.
And thank you, Dr. Fisher, and thanks for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast. Now, where can the audience find you?
The best place to find me is Dr. Sabbat. Dr. Gigi is going to leave a link. That's my best place to find me. But I will also say, if you're on Instagram, find me on Instagram at my handle, jamayfisher. That's JAMAYFISHER. Would be a really good place to find me. And all of my links are there and things like that, too. So
awesome. Thanks so much for being a guest again, Dr. Fisher. God bless you.
Thank you.